What's up, losers? Today I'm bringing you more r/fatlogic action, with a fresh batch of posts to read and react to. This is episode 40 in my fatlogic series, which ticks off another milestone on my way to 50 episodes. Hooray! But anyway, without further ado, let's get right into these posts.
We gain weight because we accumulate so much wisdom and knowledge that there isn't enough space in our heads, and it spreads all over our bodies.
Okay, so I'm struggling to formulate a response to this one, because I don't really know how to interpret it. Like, is it a joke? Is it a parody? It's not funny, at least, not in a way that seems remotely intentional. So that would seem to rule out those possibilities. Is it just meant to be a flex about how smart fat people, or fat activists, are? If it is, it's more than a touch ironic, all things considered. Maybe it's some kind of metaphor, trying to communicate some abstract meaning that is beyond my comprehension. There's no ruling it out, at any rate. And then there's the chance that it's just literal and unironic, which seems too stupid to be true, but can never be 100% ruled out when dealing with fat activists. I wish I could give you some conclusive answer, or even a plausible theory, but I find myself stuck. I have nothing to offer. I stand before you humbled, defeated. All I can say now is, I'm sorry I let you down.
When thin people recover from eating disorders, they're seen as warriors. When fat people recover from eating disorders, or become fat as a result of recovery, we're seen as failures. Thin folks in recovery get to pursue freedom, while fat folks in recovery are told to aim for balance and moderation. Thin folks in recovery are told not to fixate on their weight. Fat folks are told, we'll start you on a weight loss plan once you're stable. The world doesn't want fat people to live without eating disorders, which is why it's so incredibly badass when we do it anyway.
This post is honestly so frustrating to read. Like, binge eating disorder exists. You can't just talk about fat people with eating disorders and erase the specific eating disorder that is most associated with being fat. I'm going to try to respond to the individual points that the post makes. But it might get a little messy, because pretending that all eating disorders are restrictive is a fundamental misrepresentation that serves as the basis for most of what's being argued. So you'll have to bear with me as I try to cut through all the BS to get to the heart of the matter. To begin with, I don't accept that underweight people who recover from eating disorders are unanimously, or even usually, regarded as warriors within ED recovery spaces. Perhaps, but among the general public, they are unlikely to receive the amount of positive reinforcement that we might like to think they would. Unless they are extremely underweight to begin with, many recovering ED patients may go through weight restoration without receiving any encouragement. Lots of people will not notice the change in their body, and some people will even tell them that they looked better before. It is for all of these reasons, among others of course, that recovery is such a challenging process for many ED sufferers. The feeling that one's ED is invalid, and doubts over the necessity of recovery, are all too common. Instead of being hailed as warriors, then, a great many people recover from their restrictive eating disorder in silence and anonymity, with the only thing driving them forward being a desire to get better. As for people who become fat through recovery, while it is good that they have been able to overcome their impulse to restrict, it's unsurprising, and completely appropriate, that their being fat is not endorsed as a desirable end state. The point of recovery is to get better, not to replace one health problem with another. Although it may be a difficult balancing act, it is worth trying to achieve a healthy and sustainable weight, rather than just getting fat and calling it a day. Because if people aren't going to get better only switch to the opposite extreme. What's the point of recovery in the first place? Moving on to the next point about the difference in expectations towards fat and thin ED sufferers. Yeah, no shit. Thin people with EDs are being encouraged to put on weight. And fat ones aren't, because underweightness and obesity are bad. It's not rocket science, is it? If you acknowledge the existence of BED sufferers in the category of fat people with EDs, this complaint makes even less sense. Food freedom and further weight gain are the exact opposite of what they need. So it's only obvious that they wouldn't be encouraged as part of the recovery process, haha. It's not that complicated. The final comment that it's quote-unquote badass for fat people to live without eating disorders by choosing to stay fat seriously bugs me, not only because it's encouraging people to stay obese, which is unhealthy, but also because it is erasing binge eating disorder entirely. Despite the fact that many fat people suffer from it, this tells people who may suffer from BED not to seek treatment, that their experiences of shame and lack of control are invalid, and that the badass thing for them to do is to give up on recovery, which is just profoundly toxic. Overall, this post seems to miss the point of ED recovery. Depending on the condition one has, the goals of recovery could include gaining weight, relaxing compulsive and self-destructive eating habits, or losing weight, but the goal is never to become fat. Being obese already and wanting to eat more isn't recovery. It's you making yourself worse. And I don't know why you would expect anyone to indulge you in your fantasy of it somehow doing something positive.
Observation: if you go from not exercising much, or at all, to exercising a lot, you eventually move into a zone where you're constantly battling injuries, big or small. This is a health risk, and it's not morally better than whatever risks you incur by not exercising. Just saying.
Size. Why do they always have to frame things in such black and white, all or nothing terms? It's like the idea of moderation is totally alien to them. Like, obviously, if you're obese, and you suddenly start exercising a lot out of nowhere, you're going to be putting your body under a lot of strain that it will be unable to cope with, and you will likely get injured. This is not some earth-shaking revelation, and it's not even a particularly insightful observation on the part of the poster. It's just common sense. With that being said, the way it's being employed here is manipulative and misleading. They somehow jump straight from exercising too much too early might put you at risk of injury, to you might as well just give up on exercise altogether. Like, we're missing a few steps here, aren't we? Why can't you just ease your way into it? Start off slow, only exercising a little, then incrementally work up to a more ambitious routine as your body adjusts to it. Or you could start by dropping weight through diet alone, and then transition to exercise gradually once you're at a lower weight. These are both totally reasonable options that were not hard for me to come up with. Yet the post for whatever reason completely neglects them and fast forwards to a worst-case scenario. I wonder why. Fat people already find exercise intimidating enough. Is there really a need to make them more apprehensive about it? And to further dissuade them from making a positive change in their life? I swear, these fat activists are determined to make sure that no fat people even consider that they might be able to successfully transform their lifestyle. How sad. And what's with this talk of whether exercising or not exercising is more moral? Like, this has nothing to do with morality. It's about personal choice, and it's about helping people to achieve a healthier body and lifestyle. People aren't telling fat people to exercise because they think to not do it is immoral. They're telling them to do it because it is in their own best interest. I'm sick of fat activists trying to introduce morality into all these discussions. Because it only serves to foster this false narrative of fat victimhood. When the advice being offered is well-intentioned and constructive. If you don't want to exercise or lose weight, that's your right, but don't try to paint those who want to help you in a negative light. So that you can cosplay as a martyr taking some kind of moral stand. When we both know you just can't be bothered, LMAO. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed the posts and my responses to them. At least as far as I was able to respond to them, haha. What do you think? Is it possible to get into exercise without being plagued by injuries? Is being fat without an eating disorder badass? Do people gain weight from accumulating wisdom and knowledge? Let me know in the comments. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, or I'll hit you with so much big brain knowledge that you'll put on 100 pounds. Just kidding, haha. Anyway, catch you later.